At 3:12 a.m. in the morning, while most of New York slept, 6 men walked into a guarded airport vault and walked out with nearly $6 million without firing a single shot. That night, the Lufthansa cargo terminal at JFK Airport did not erupt into chaos, because no alarms screamed, no police rushed in, and nothing appeared out of place. Everything looked normal, and that illusion of normalcy was precisely why the robbery succeeded. This was the largest cash theft in American history, executed without violence, panic, or spectacle. What made it remarkable was not just the amount stolen, but how quietly it was done. The truth behind the Lufthansa heist has never fully surfaced, and the mystery only deepened after the money disappeared. The robbery did not begin at an airport, but with a personal debt. Louis Werner worked as a supervisor at Lufthansa's cargo terminal and knew the schedules, the routines, and the weak points in security. Every few weeks, planes arrived from Frankfurt carrying millions in untraceable cash from currency exchanges used by American tourists in Europe. That money was stored overnight in the vault before armored trucks collected it the next morning. Werner also owed gambling debts, and when debts grow large enough, information becomes currency. Werner shared his knowledge with a bookmaker named Martin Krugman, who understood its value immediately. Krugman passed the tip to Henry Hill, a mob associate who recognized that this was not a rumor but a real opportunity. Hill brought the information to James "Jimmy" the Gent Burke, a man who did not need official rank to command power. Burke controlled hijacking crews, trucking routes, and criminal networks through fear, loyalty, and efficiency. When Burke heard the details, he saw something others missed. This was not a robbery that required speed or force, but silence and discipline. The plan developed slowly, with each participant assigned a narrow role and limited knowledge. An insider would disable alarms. One crew would control the guards, another would move the money, and another would erase evidence. No improvisation was allowed, because improvisation creates mistakes. The target date was December 11, 1978. Just after 3 a.m., a stolen black Ford Econoline van pulled up to the rear of the Lufthansa cargo building. 6 men wearing gloves and ski masks entered quietly and restrained the guards without violence. No one was hurt, no shots were fired, and the guards were told to remain calm and look away. Inside the vault were stacks of cash and bags of jewelry worth nearly $6 million. The amount was larger than expected, making this the most dangerous moment of the operation. Too much money can slow people down and change behavior, but the crew stayed disciplined. Within just over an hour, the van was loaded and driven out of the airport as if nothing had happened. By the time the theft was discovered, the money had already vanished into the city. Investigators were stunned by how clean the crime was. There were no fingerprints, no damaged systems, and no witnesses willing to talk. Everyone suspected organized crime, but suspicion alone leads nowhere. The first cracks appeared not during the robbery, but afterward. Some of the men involved could not resist spending their share. New cars appeared, expensive clothes were worn openly, and behavior grew careless. One man showed up to work in a fur coat, while another bought a Cadillac that drew attention. James Burke noticed all of it. Burke understood that the robbery itself was not the danger, but the aftermath was. Within months, people connected to the heist began disappearing. Martin Krugman vanished after demanding his share and was never found. Other crew members were shot, strangled, or simply disappeared. Each death reduced risk and buried another secret. Law enforcement suspected a cleanup, but suspicion does not survive courtrooms. One critical mistake did surface. The getaway van was supposed to be crushed immediately, but was instead abandoned near an apartment. Police found it and lifted fingerprints that linked the crime to known criminals. The lead was real, but it ended there. James Burke was heavily monitored by the FBI. Wiretaps captured fragments of conversations, and informants hinted at involvement. No money was ever recovered, and no direct evidence tied Burke to the vault. Years passed, and Henry Hill eventually became a government informant. His testimony confirmed much of what investigators already believed. Words alone were not enough without physical evidence. The money was gone, the witnesses were dead, and the case existed only in fragments. By the early 1980s, investigators were no longer asking who did it. They were asking whether it could ever be proven. Cash leaves no trail once it disappears into the underground economy. There were no serial numbers to trace, no accounts to freeze, and no vaults to open. What remained were stories, and stories decay with time. Witnesses died or vanished, memories blurred, and fear outlasted loyalty. Even when informants spoke, their testimony came with credibility problems and legal compromises. Years turned into decades. In 2014, prosecutors made one final attempt to close the case. Vincent Asaro, an aging mob associate, was arrested and charged for his alleged role. The trial relied on old recordings and testimony from long-dead witnesses. In 2015, the jury acquitted him. James Burke died in prison in 1996, convicted for other crimes. Henry Hill died years later after being expelled from witness protection. Louis Werner served time as the only person directly convicted in connection to the heist. The money was never found. What happened to it has never been proven. The Lufthansa heist did not end with justice. It ended with silence. This is why inside information mattered more than weapons. The crew did not need to overpower security. They needed to move when no one expected movement. They needed to act during the quiet hours when vigilance was lowest. The vault was protected by procedure, not suspicion. And when procedure replaces awareness, security becomes a suggestion. If you stayed until the end, it means this case stayed with you. Crimes like this don't end with answers. They end with gaps, and those gaps are what keep pulling people back decades later. If you want more deep dives into cases where the truth is incomplete and the record is unsettled, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Share this with someone who still believes every crime leaves a clean trail.